Welcome to Saturday afternoon Yin Yoga, yogis. I'm going to put my feet together like this, and then I'm going to lie on my back. But before I do that, I'm going to get a couple things handy. If you wanted to do this with a little bit more of an elevation, you could use a couch cushion or even two underneath your back. I'm just going to take this blanket that I've got here, and essentially I'm going to roll it sort of into long thirds like that, and I'm going to put that under my back so that it starts at about the bottom of my ribs, and then I can make a little bit more support for my head happen. And then if you've got some throw pillows like this, these make great supports for knees if the pose is a little too aggressive. So I'll take a couple of those here and put them underneath me that way. And so we're going to come into this reclining position. It's called, in the Yin world, it's called reclining butterfly, or some people call it sleeping butterfly. I don't usually use the word sleep because sometimes that's all too close. So snuggle your shoulder blades under you, adjust yourself. If you're just laying flat on the floor, that's also nice. And you can go out kind of wide with the arms if you've got the space in your room. Take a nice deep breath in with your exhale. Let go. And then do that a few times if you like, just to sort of settle in. If you've been kind of busy all day and this is your chance to slow down, take another deep breath or two. And an audible sigh allows the nervous system actually to, it triggers our parasympathetic response. There's a pair of cranial nerves that are responsible for about 70% of our ability to relax. And those two nerves kind of travel through the body. It's called the vagus nerve. And so it travels through the body, and one of the places it goes through is through our larynx, our vocal box. So singing or humming or deep sighing, any auditory sound can trigger the relaxation response. So we're going to stay here for about 3 more minutes. So quite a while, just letting go and breathing. And since I've muted your microphones, if you have some soft music or, well, any kind of music really, you can put some music on in the background at your house that you like. I'm still investigating some possibilities for using royalty-free music in the future, and I'll hopefully get that together for next week. I'm a little leery to put music on the internet because I don't know how the artists get paid for it, and so I want to make sure that the only music I would use would be music that doesn't cheat artists out of their money. Sometimes as I stay, I start to notice like little places where, I've been carrying tension right there around my temples, or that's one for me that's pretty common. Or I might even, as I start to relax my jaw muscles, I might feel, I didn't realize I was carrying so much tension along my mouth or in the shoulders. Sometimes these chest muscles, if you're working from home, you may not have like the same kind of space that you're used to at your office. And so we kind of get closed in a little bit. And the body's tendency when we're stressed out is to kind of curl up. And so that can cause like some tightness around the shoulders and chest. It can cause some low back tension or pain. And so allowing ourselves to have this little moment of opening up and letting go is really lovely. So we're going to stay for about another minute. I'm listening in my house to the soft gurgle of the humidifier I have in my living room for my plants. There's not much other noise going on, and usually there's traffic, and lately it's been quite interesting, quite a bit more quiet. I'm going to take a nice big breath. Let go with a nice big ah. And then we'll bring the knees together first. And then I like to stay on the blanket just a little bit and just give myself a little side to side, little windshield wiper moves. And then I'm going to roll to the side and get this blanket out. Oh. Set that off to the side, and oh, there's this really lovely feeling. So it feels like I can kind of still feel the blanket that was under there, and my whole back is kind of softening into the ground, and that feels really nice. So if you wanted to, you could bring your knees in and kind of hug yourself, give yourself a little, or maybe even a happy baby pose for a moment. And then when you feel like you're ready to come on up, we're going to come to a seated position. Oh, I don't know, it feels pretty good. So we're going to roll to the side and we'll come on up when you're ready. If you need a little extra time, you can do that. If you're watching me on YouTube instead of the live cast of this, then you could pause the video and stay as long as you want. Now, what I'm going to do with my blanket is open it up like this. And then I'm going to roll it up. So we're going to do a dragonfly pose. And this would be called Upavista Konasana, or wide angle forward bend, seated wide angle forward bend in the other yoga world. But in Yin, we like to rename everything so that it's not confusing. So I've got the legs in a V. You don't have to go all the way to your edges. That's about as far as I can go with my hips. The problem with this point is that I'm basically feeling bone-on-bone compression in my hip when I start to tilt forward. And I'm not, it's okay to have that compression sensation. You just want to make sure that it doesn't feel too sharp. It doesn't feel like you're doing any damage. And I know for my body anyway, that I've got one hip that's a little tighter than the other. And for that reason, I want to just be a little bit more conservative so that I don't take my tighter hip past its edge. Okay, so I can go to the edge of the tighter hip rather than the edge of the looser hip. Now, we're going to fold forward, and some people can fold all the way onto the floor and just lay down. I am not one of those people. And I like to, so you can use some throw pillows like I've got here. If you've got some yoga blocks that are handy, you can do some yoga blocks either by themselves like that, or you can build what I like to refer to as a yoga Stonehenge, so that you can lean into it. And even this way, sometimes for me, I can sort of put my head down on there. So if it's feeling like your head is heavy, you can rest your head. If it feels better to have your neck just kind of just a little length in the back, you can do that. Now, for me, of course, when I fold into this pose, my pelvis goes forward, and I feel sensation here in my inner thigh mostly. For some folks, and it's a pretty good segment of the population, genetically, when your legs are out wide like this, your pelvis actually goes backwards. And so if that's your jam, you can do this pose laying on your back with your feet up on the couch. If you're in a position where that could happen, or you can just not fold forward as much. You just, kind of hang out. Because when you fold forward in that condition, it tends to round the back. Now again, there's nothing wrong with that. Rounding the back is sometimes really delightful, but you want to make sure that the sensation to you feels like it's not sharp shooting, numb or tingly or burning or heat sensation is inappropriate. And anything that feels like you're forcing yourself is not a yin, is not what we're looking for in yin yoga. With yin, The word yin comes from the Taoist idea of things, which is that the truth about the universe is that it's all one thing, right? But you can't articulate that. And so, and it's the human experience, the experience of being in the planet, is that we have a dualistic experience. We experience things as hot and cold, night and day, light and heavy. And so yin is the aspect of creation that is a little bit mutable, it's softer, it recedes, a little more feminine. So what we're looking for is that kind of sense, rather than being pushy or aggressive like we might be in our yang styles of movement, we're going to try to do the opposite of that. We're going to try to surrender into the shape. And we're going to stay here for about 30 more seconds. Sometimes when I tell you guys stories and talk to you, the time goes by faster, so hopefully that worked out for you. So take 2 more breaths. Now, big inhale. Big exhale. And then come all the way up. And I'm gonna lean back and bend the knees first, and then I'm gonna pick them up and bring the legs into the center. Now, once I get here, it's nice to move a little bit. So I like to do a little shimmy movement, a little bit slower movement, and then some ankle circles always feel really nice to me. And then just pause for a second. Don't move, just settle and see what happened. Now the sensation that I'm experiencing, for the most part, I experience this kind of really interesting lightness, and it's almost effervescent, a little interesting. It doesn't feel pins and needles, it just feels light and kind of fuzzy when compared to, like, if I compare the sensation of my arm, for example, to the sensation that's happening right here in my inner thigh. Just a little different. And it feels pleasant. If when I come out of a pose, it feels crunchy or hard or heavy, that means I was too aggressive. So now we're gonna do a pose that's kind of an outer hip pose. I'm gonna show you 3 options. Actually, there's like 3.5. Let's say 3A, 3B. So first is the square pose. And that is a pose where you put one leg up on top of the other. And this is the one that has two possibilities. It's very similar. So the square, I've got my 2 shins stacked up. If for some reason that doesn't work for my body, I can take some props and try some things out. So you can try taking the leg further out. You can try straightening out the bottom leg. So you just have the one leg up on top. Some people, it's easier actually if they put the knees on top of each other instead. That pushes me off to the side. And so the best way for me to do that way, where I want my feet down, is to elevate my hips. So if you sit up on a couple of props or blocks. So that's one option, A-B. Second option is the swan pose. And that can be done either on your back. And to do it on your back, you would lie down, put one leg up on top of the other, and that might be all that you do. You can put a block under your foot so that your leg is a little elevated, or you can bring the legs into your chest and hold on to them. So that's option 2. And then the option 3, which is what I'm gonna do, is we're gonna have one leg bent like this. I'm gonna lean into that hip and I'm gonna swing the back leg around, okay? You can get into this other ways, but that's a possibility. Now, it's okay to tilt to the side. It's okay to even bend that knee a little bit and bring that leg out to the side. Kind of mess with the pose a little bit, experiment, see what you get. I like to do a little pillow or block or blanket under my hip, and then a little bit more of a straight leg because I get a little more stretch right there on the front of my hip. And I like to stay slightly elevated. So I put my elbows down here so that I feel like I'm in just a little bit of a back bend, as opposed to all the way down laying on the floor. But some people really dig in when they just lay their whole body down onto the ground. So you decide. So now that we're here, we'll stay for a few minutes. And then again, if you get numbness or tingling in your foot, if your hip starts to hurt. If there's a burning or a heat sensation in your hip joint, those are signals that you want to get out and try a different option. If none of that is happening, and there's just this kind of dance with the sensation that's in your, up under your glute on your bent leg, and maybe you'll feel it in your inner thigh here or on this back leg as well. Those are sensations we can work with. Sometimes I'll sink into this pose for 5 or 6 minutes. Today we're going to do 3 because it's a limited class time. Got 1 minute left here. Just try to breathe deep and smooth. When my mind kind of catches on something, I start to distract myself. I just, oh yeah, let me go back to where I was doing. I'm paying attention to the breath, noticing the body, and trying to relax as deeply as I can. Let go of little places where I might carry stress in my shoulders or around my hips or in my face or in my entire body lately. I don't know if you guys are in the same place with me, but probably a lot of us are feeling quite out of sorts. So I've pushed up a little bit just to have a deeper back bend for these last few seconds here. 2 more breaths. And then we're going to let ourselves lean into the bent leg hip if you're doing the swan with me. If you're on your back, you're going to unwind your legs. If you're doing the square or the shoelace, lean back and then unpretzel your legs. And again, we're just going to take a moment to jiggle. So there's actually a scientific term for this where you stretch, wiggle, and then relax. That process is called pandiculation, and it allows us actually to experience the benefits of the stretching a little bit longer than if we just stretch and then go right to the next thing. So giving ourselves a chance to kind of feel, experience, see what the body is telling us is actually beneficial in more ways than one. And animals do it all the time. So if you've ever watched a dog, like they wake up, they stretch into downward dog, they stretch into upward dog, and then they shake their whole body, and then they settle, right? And so even animals that, other animals do a similar thing. They may not exactly stretch into downward dog and upward dog, but you get the idea. They have their own poses. All right, so we're going to do the other side, and I'm going to go this way for this side. So I'm going to put this leg up front, swing that leg behind. I'm going to lean a little bit so I can put my cushion under there. And this is my hip that's a little bit less muscular, a little less tight. So this one is a little bit softer for me. And so the experience is, a little different on this side. So I am doing what I feel like is best. If this one allows me to kind of sink into it a little bit deeper, this is your easier hip, it might be the same. But you might, go a little further down, or you might add a little bit of a twist on this side because it's a little more forgiving. It's okay to do things slightly asymmetrically. We are, in fact, asymmetrical. So there's nothing really wrong with doing it that way. Now, usually for me, the first minute, which is where we're just about done with, is my kind of settle in time and check in. And at the end of the first minute, I usually know if there's going to be some of that feeling that I'm being too pushy. Like I'll start to feel that heat, like the muscle or the deeper tissue is getting warm. That's always a signal that we're a little too aggressive. We want to add a little bit more support or back off a little bit. It's a subtle sensation. If you don't feel it, that's fine too. And we'll stay for a little bit longer, about another minute and a half. Again, just tuning into the breath. When your mind wanders off, come on back to the breath. It might wander 1,000 times, just keep coming back. A little bit of this pose here, about 45 seconds. So we're going to take a nice big breath. Let go with a really big. We're going to ease our way out of that pose. Now we'll jiggle around a little bit. And then, oh, that feels good. Oh, there's such a lovely feeling when you come out of a yoga pose. It's just like the body goes, oh, yeah, okay. Okay, my body goes like that. So what we're going to do next is we're going to do either a supported bridge pose or you can do Shavasana here instead. So to do supported bridge, I'm going to take a block like this and put it underneath my hips. My blocks are quite firm, and so to make it a little bit softer, I'm going to take a blanket and just put it on top. And this is a little bit of a hassle to get underneath my hip, but it's not terrible. If you don't have a block, but you have a couple of throw pillows, you could actually kind of sit on these, lay back, and then just adjust your hips on top of them. I don't recommend sitting on the blocks because they kind of need to go higher than where they wind up, but you can do it as long as you make the adjustments. And for throw pillows, because they have a wider surface, that definitely works. Okay, so I'm going to lay down. I'm going to take my hips up into the air and put this block underneath me. And then, once I get it in here, I want it to be just below the top rim of my pelvis. I don't want it up under my low back. So this curve right in here should be pretty much free of that debris. Now, there are people on the planet who have kind of wonky or wobbly sacrums. And if you're one of those people, then this may not be your jam. And you might want to do, you can try a softer surface. Sometimes the softer, the couple of throw pillows or yoga bolster actually works better because it will not put quite the same amount of pressure. The joints have a little bit more room, but you'll have to experiment because it's very tricky and everybody is very unique on that level. Now what I've done here is I've straightened out both my legs, and this for me becomes a really nice hip flexor stretch, and it goes way down deep. I can almost feel it lightening my shoulders because my psoas muscle is being kind of gently pulled, which is a pretty deep little muscle. It's not a little muscle, it's kind of big, but it's a deep muscle. It's way in there. I would have to take off my abdominal wall, and all my internal organs would have to come out, and then you could see it. So it's way deep. It is connected to the diaphragm, so it's a muscle that when the diaphragm is being used really powerfully, it actually does kind of tone or make that muscle respond. And it's a fight or flight muscle in that in most animals, bipedal animals, we call their psoas muscle a tenderloin when So it's a muscle they don't use as much because of the way they move. But for us, bipedal animals, the psoas and then this little muscle that we were stretching in the swan, the piriformis, those are our muscles that allow us to walk on two legs and really create the movement that allows the body to, kind of effortlessly swing through the movement of walking. And so for us, these two muscles are very intimately connected to our emotional states because they're fight or flight muscles. And so when our sympathetic nervous system, that fight, flight, freeze nervous system is in charge, those muscles tend to be kind of slightly contracted so that they're ready to go, right? Because our nervous system doesn't necessarily know the difference between a Siberian tiger that's about to bite our face off and a pandemic that's lurking out there in the world, or the tax man, or whatever it might be that you're afraid of. Our nervous system doesn't really know the difference. It's all just a danger. And so the same thing happens. The muscles tighten, and so allowing yourselves to kind of hang out here and lengthen. We're going to stay for one more minute if we can. You can also, if you're up for it, you can try floating your legs up and use this last minute to do a little bit of lymphatic movement. So our lymph in the legs kind of relies on us to do a bunch of movement, especially upside down things are good, like jumping up and down on a trampoline, awesome for your immune system. Or your lymphatic system anyway. Immune system's a complicated beast, but the lymph is part of it. And the way the body, kind of distributes waste products and gets rid of things is through the lymphatic system. It does not have a pump, so it relies on us to move. And in the legs, the big ducts live up here at the groin and behind the knee. And so if you could get the lymph to drain to where there's a node, a big lymph node, it helps the body clean itself up. It does its thing, man. So we got 2 more breaths. And then 1 more. And then I'm gonna gently put the feet on the ground. Whoop, whoop. And I'm gonna take my hips up and pull this guy out. And for you, it might be easier to kind of roll off to the side. Now, right where I had that block, oh, it feels so nice to do a little windshield wiper rock on the pelvis, or to do a little circle, circle, circle. Okay, so now we're gonna stretch out for Shavasana. So I'm gonna take one leg and reach it out there and jiggle it into place, and I'm gonna do the other one, and I have a little bit less space over here, so I'm gonna make a little bit of room with my foot. And then, let your body relax. And take a few moments now. So when you lay down with your legs stretched out, if you feel this low back start to arch up off the floor a little bit, you want some support under your legs. So you could take your throw pillows or a blanket and put that right under your hips. And for me, it helps to have it really close. I kind of hug it right up against my hips. And then once I'm in the shape, there's a sense that it lets that psoas muscle, and in this case, when it comes here, it's actually married into this big muscle in the hip right here. So it lets this whole front of the hip relax, and that takes the pressure out of your low back. So now where I had a tunnel big enough for ferrets to go under, I now don't have a tunnel. I mean, I could probably squeak a mouse in there, but that would be about it. And so that's more comfortable. And then you can, if you like some elevation under your head, you can take a blanket and stick that in there. And then the meeting's gonna end very shortly, but I'm gonna keep going with this Shavasana. I'm just gonna kind of talk us through a few moments here. So you're gonna take a moment and jiggle and ready yourself. Make sure you've got enough props and that they're in the right areas so that you're not feeling like you need to fidget. And then take a really big breath and let go with a really big and you might even do that a couple more times. And then feel yourself just give in to the earth. And you might be like, laying not on the actual earth, but on a surface quite a ways above the earth. But imagine the earth underneath you. And allow yourself to imagine yourself really sinking in, almost as if you know, you lay down on a really thick carpet of lawn or moss, and your body sort of sinks in and makes a little impression. So make an impression into the carpet or the floor. And then allow yourself to lighten around the eyes. So the muscles on the outside, around our face, near our temples, and the cheeks all relax. Let your jaw relax. Soften the lips. You might stretch out the fingers and toes and give them a little wiggle, and then let them relax. And we're just going to pause here for another minute or so. Body soft and relaxed. Now if you're at home or you're watching this online, you can pause the video for a moment at some point and just lay back down. Or if you're with me and you know, we're going to end this little online live stream, we're going to stretch in all directions like a big starfish. Oh, and then we're going to hug in and give it a little massage. Oh. And we're going to roll to one side. And pause there for a moment. Oh. And then give yourself a little push up to a seated position. And again, if you're like, no, I don't want to leave Shavasana, you can go back there. But before I go with my version of this with you, I'm going to do a nice big Om. So you're going to take a big breath and let go with an Om. Just again to vocalize. Let yourself sing in the shower. Find ways to allow that sort of, you know, do karaoke in your living room, but find a way to relax in that way. If you're vocally inclined, how's that? Namaste, yogis. Namaste.